everybody, it's Alex Gaddy, and I'm so excited that you're here on this week's episode of the F.A.T. podcast. Today, I have my sweet sister-in-law, Taylor King, represent.
Hey, everybody.
And I'm super excited to have you here. I have never heard your testimony before, so I'm ready to dive in.
All right.
So, who is Taylor King?
Well, right now, I'm a wife. We just got married.
Whoa.
I guess.
Right now?
Right now. Hopefully forever. It's hopefully not going to change.
No.
Well, we are about to come up on our 2-year anniversary on October 1st. Still have no idea what we're doing. And
Yeah.
kind of upset about that, but whatever. But yeah, so we're about to come up on our 2-year anniversary of getting married.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 pugs at home. No kids yet, but hopefully in the future.
Hopefully soon.
Anyway, hopefully in the future. And yeah, that's me.
Yeah?
Working hard.
Working hard at what?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do, girl?
I'm a assistant property manager at a community over in Flat Rock, North Carolina.
Nice.
It's a beautiful community. It's a brand new community, which is really nice because you get the
It's so beautiful.
consistency through your apartments. Because I've worked at some older apartments that were not so great. But every, path is different for everybody. So,
Yeah. Well, good. All right. Well, let's dig into the deep stuff. Tell me about your walk with Jesus. When did you first hear about Jesus? Who introduced you to him?
So the first time would probably be, I was younger. My Nana brought me to church and we used to sing together at church. And that's kind of how I met Christ. Now, I wouldn't say that I met him because it's not like, I was like 6 years old. I didn't really understand like what was going on, but I knew that he was somebody that was going to be important in my life. So
Yeah. Very nice. Okay. So you went to church young. Was she the primary person that took you to work, or not to work, excuse me, to church?
But funny enough, she did take me to work with her whenever she went to work.
I love that.
She would drive me in her car to work every day, drop me off with my mom, and then come back and get me. She was my rock. She is still my rock, but so she would, I'd stay with her a lot when I was younger, just through my parents' divorce and separation, things like that. I would go to church with her on Sundays, and, it'd just be a routine for us. And, every Sunday, especially after her father had passed, she really got into, going back to church and making sure that was something that was instilled in my life. So
That's good. Okay. So how long did you go to church?
It was probably a couple of years, and then it kind of fell off just because my parents' separation got messy, My mom remarried. It was a different household. We lived in a different part. It was probably like an hour away from my Nana, so it wasn't as convenient. And then we kind of stopped going.
Yeah.
It wasn't as routine or wasn't as something that we were supposed to do, in my life at that point.
Yeah, understood. Yeah. I think a lot of people, they start out in the church, and I've had so many people talk about that they started out going to church, and then at some point they walked away, and most people kind of, they meet Christ or really get to know him later on in life, a lot of times in our adulthood. So, okay, so at what point do you feel like you really got to know Christ?
Probably here recently, because even growing up, like I would go to vacation Bible school, I would go to summer camps, I would do things like that, but it was more of like this is going to sound terrible about my parents, but it was more of like a babysitting outlet, I think, for my parents, more than it was for me actually getting to know God and instilling that in my life. So, here recently having, Jacob's family, your family, actually going and participating and, showing me that it's just more than just words and someone up there preaching them. Yeah. So,
absolutely.
Here lately, it's definitely been a game changer. So
good.
I'm understanding more. It's not like I'm just listening to these things. They're going in one ear and out the other. And then after you get out of church, you go eat lunch and then you go do whatever about your day and the rest of the week. And then you come back and repeat it. So
yeah, it's becoming more of like part of your life.
Right.
Versus just one day a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like doing Bible study on Wednesdays. I'm actually like digging into these stories and these verses and understanding that, it's you're digesting what you're actually hearing. You're not just hearing it and going away from it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, your walk with Christ it truly is a relationship. Mm-hmm. It's just like going to the gym. Yeah. You can't go to the gym once a week and expect to have results.
Right, yeah. And that was definitely something that I wasn't taught. Like, I wasn't, like, you know, growing up, like, I mean, my Nana definitely had a relationship with God in her own way, but it's just, like, you know, especially a lot of, you know, Southern churches, they don't teach you how to, you know, be in a relationship with God. They just kind of, like,
they
expect you to do the right thing, and, you know, if you don't, you're going to hell. So it's just kind of like it's an eye-opener, especially, you know, going to this new church in Flat Rock and being able to relate to so many stories in the Bible, and, you know, all these verses and all these challenges and obstacles. It's just nice to be able to be like, oh yeah, I've done that. Like, and then the preacher's like, yeah, I've done it too. Like, it's not a, you know, big deal.
That's so true, and having a past is really important for your relationship. If you're comfortable with it and open to it, are you open to talking about maybe some of the hardships that you went through growing up?
Sure, yeah. Any particular spot you want to start?
What about that one time? I'm just kidding. No. Tell me, like, what was your childhood like? Let's just start easy. And again, this is completely up to what you're comfortable talking about. Yeah. But let's just say, like, up to, like, from birth up to, like, middle school. I feel like that's a good range.
Sure. Yeah. Well, when I was born, obviously I didn't remember too much, but
I was just here.
My parents, they split up, got divorced when I was like 2. You know, right after my little sister was born. Yeah. So I've always been in a separated family. It's never been, you know,
you don't know what unity's
cohesive. Like. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's just been, you know, no shame on my parents, but you know, they just didn't get along. It wasn't co-parenting like it is today. So, you know, it's just kind of like going back and forth for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, you know, I was with my dad for a while, and then I came back to my mom after some stuff had happened, and you know, that's kind of when, you know, middle school came around. Like, I'm changing, I'm evolving, I'm learning things, and you know, I moved back into my mom, and it just seemed like God was the furthest from me at that point, because like even up to college, I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you felt like God was so far away from you, and especially it's hard to have a ground when there is no ground. And I remember feeling like that at one point, because I also come from a background of divorced parents, but at one point it felt very hard to be rooted somewhere, especially because every other weekend you were somewhere else, or like all of a sudden this new person comes into your life, and you're like, what in the world? It's, I can see how that would be really tough to find a root, especially if you weren't to begin with rooted with Christ.
Right. Yeah. And like going through, especially in middle school, that's when it kind of hit me hard in my life. A lot of struggles had happened because, you know, one of my parents was struggling with addiction. I was very thankful for my stepdad at the time, because he was just my rock at that point. And sorry, I didn't think I was going to cry this early on.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, sorry, I got to suck it up.
It's okay. It's okay to cry. You're okay.
Yeah, but he was, you know, a big person in my life. He really, you know, stepped up and did the job that he didn't have to do. And,
if you just want to grab a roll of toilet paper, Jacob, that's fine.
I'm very thankful for him. But yeah, you know, as my parents were going through, you know, and she still struggles with it every day.
Yeah.
And I pray for her every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so addiction really messes up your life. So that's kind of what, you know, middle school, she had been struggling with it, you know, when I was younger, but obviously my grandparents shielded it from me. When I lived with my dad, he shielded it from me. You know, he wasn't the best role model either, but whenever middle school hit, it was just kind of like this realization that I was alone. And all I had was my siblings. So I relied on them a lot for everything. It wasn't fair to them to have me as a mom.
Yeah.
Which really sucked for them, but you know, plays a hard role, especially on a person that kind of raised their siblings as they were young. So
it's heavy.
When I got to high school and I got to college, you know, that relationship with God wasn't there. Like, it just kind of was non-existent because
you felt
I gave up. Like, it felt like he gave up on me for giving me this person in my life that was supposed to be that role model for me, and it just didn't happen. So.
Yeah, that's heavy. And thank you. I do need the tissue too now. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I could see how it would be so easy to feel that way, because starting out, you get into that rut, like, if you don't really know who Christ is, how are you gonna go to him for comfort when you don't know that he's there for comfort? But on the other hand, I feel that God never left you through that.
Yeah.
And I think you know that now. And I think that it's beautiful that you just have such an amazing story, and I love what you are seeing now and how you're growing, because I think that God's just going to use you in such amazing ways because you went through the shell. I tell you this all the time. You're going to be a phenomenal mother. You already are.
Boot camp, mama.
But yeah, you have an amazing story, and just how you can grow from that. So you went to college. Were you still going through hardship through college?
Yeah, so my freshman year, pretty much, it was like, well, I guess it was like the summer before I left for college.
Yeah.
My stepdad and my mom started getting a divorce.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, I packed up my stuff. I left for college. I was, going to go do my own thing, because this is what I needed to do in my life. I needed to go get an education because neither of my parents graduated high school. So I was going to be the first in my family to go to college and get my degree and actually do something with my life.
Yeah.
So I went to college. I started getting a divorce. Started hitting even harder just because my little sisters were stuck at home. My brother was stuck at home. Things obviously weren't easy on them. My sister was put in a possible decision whenever my mom left to stay with my stepdad. And, kind of finish out her high school years there, because she was just a junior in high school whenever it started happening. And it wasn't the easiest divorce. Things were said, things were done that shouldn't have been. My siblings were, especially my little sister, she was put in possible positions of like who to pick, who to go to, where to go. Something that never should have happened for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it just kept getting harder. And then, once the divorce was done and things, like my sister, she ended up actually coming to the same college as I did. And it seemed like it was okay. It was easy for a while. Yeah. I met Jacob my junior year of high school. So he was, a very big hand holder, a very big, person to relate to. But, as soon as my parents started getting divorced, my sister was left at home. And then my sophomore year, we had a temporary breakup just because I couldn't do it. Like, I just felt like I needed to be alone, needed to grow up as my own person instead of being, relying on these other people or, raising my siblings or being this mom figure, just let loose. And,
you're so lost in it. Yeah.
Just be myself and just, quit worrying about what everybody else has to do or who I have to do, my responsibilities. Like, I just wanted to let go and just be someone completely different.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I was extremely lost. I was going to clubs with my friends every other night because that's what I thought I wanted or needed in my life. I was drinking heavily. I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing. Having sex with all the wrong people and not my future husband and not saving myself and just being absolutely insane. I was a crazy child. Should not have been left alone.
Yeah.
And then one day I was just like, I can't keep being this person. Like, it's exhausting
Yeah.
Drinking every day, getting up late for class. My grades were failing. I was just, I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so, I don't remember how me and Jacob kind of started talking again, but we started talking again, and my life started turning around again. And then our last, I think it was my last year on campus. Jacob lived with me for the whole year, completely rent free. He didn't pay for free rent. He didn't pay for a single thing.
You were throwing him under
the
bus.
I paid for all his meals, his living. It was crazy, but
I'll have to ask him about that. On
Is this true? He was, because he was still in his last year at NC State trying to get over that chemistry exam that he, was struggling with, but he finally got over it, and we moved in with his parents, and we were, just getting our ground under our feet to start running, and I was still in college. It was my junior year. We moved in with his parents. Well, I guess it was my senior year. It's my last year. Moved in with his dad and, his stepmom, and great years, and then we got our own place, and eventually ended up back in the mountains after I graduated. And then that's
so funny how you come back. You're like,
I had to come back home. I couldn't
come back home.
I missed my family. Missed my grandparents. I was just I want to come back home. So we came back home. We were still very separated from God. We didn't, go back to church like we were supposed to. We had just found our first apartment in Asheville. Still just trying to get our lives situated because, everything's so expensive now. I mean, I thought it was expensive back then, but...
No, not even...
Yeah, but... So we were just still trying to figure it all out, and... I don't know, this last, I think probably 10 years, 15 years of my life, I didn't know God. I didn't know who he was, or... how great he was, or what he could do with my life. Until here recently, So... what is God doing in your life? Now that you know who he is, you've gone through such a hard time. Mm-hmm. He's not been away from you, but you've not answered that door with him. Right.
Who is God? What is he doing for you now? How has this changed?
I think right now, I don't know what my purpose is for sure.
That's okay.
All I know is that not even know how to say this, but anyway,
you're okay.
He's definitely teaching me the lessons that he wants for his children. He wants me to be patient, not to anger so quickly, not to do these things that I had been doing for the last 10 to 15 years, and that old habits that need to be broken. And so that's definitely something that I'm trying to concentrate more on, and I'm sure my husband appreciates it because I'm very impatient, very quick to anger. But I think he's just kind of taking those baby steps that I didn't get a chance to take when I was younger. So I think that's kind of what we're working on together. And I pray about it every day. Pray about my family every day. Pray for health and peace and my well-being, my family's well-being. And just try to get me to what my purpose would be maybe later on in my life. So.
Well, I think... And I think new and older Christians feel this way, that we're constantly I don't know what our purpose is, especially because we find our identity in Christ, but we see all these mega I'm stuck in words. All these mega agents. We see these mega Christians out there, and we think, oh, well, I've got to build up my faith to this point that I've got to talk on this big stage, or I'm going to be a big singer. And I feel like we miss so often that we are called to just be in our life. And sometimes that's just literally, you need to be walking with Christ so that you can just be for the people around you, touching your coworkers, that they can see Christ through you, or touching your husband, or touching their family. And I think we miss out on that. So don't feel like you don't have a purpose, because you absolutely have so much purpose. And I think it's really cool. And I remember when I first became a Christian, just being so excited. And you're going to learn so many amazing things. I remember someone that I used to go to church with growing up, he used to talk about faith as very much taking steps. And you start out on the milk, and then you graduate to baby food, and then you graduate to like the Cheerios, and then you start to get
interesting take.
Yeah, so but I've always kept that because you're always going to continue to grow. So I think it's cool that you're in the stage that you're beginning out, and you need that food to feed your soul.
Yeah.
So how are you dealing with your past? I mean, are you working on closing some chapters? Are you working on still like healing from that? How is God helping you with that?
Yeah, I think he has given me a lot of patience with people in my life that I feel, because like I said, I'm very quick to anger. I used to be very angry with my parents, very angry with, how they did, especially now, how they didn't raise me in church and, get me to be, just a better human being and have a better relationship with God overall.
Yeah.
But definitely helping me with, I think, just patience overall. I think because I'm very lacking in that area. Yeah. So he's very like, let me just get you there. But also I think, my brain has a tendency to just kind of like shut things off with emotions towards other people. And I think that's just kind of his way of being like, it's not that time yet. It's not that fight yet. Not that kind of conversation to have. So I've just been very silent and just trying to be a better person overall. Yeah. And knowing that this isn't going to be forever.
Yeah.
So
it's not. And it'll go by so quickly too. Yeah. What are you doing to kind of grow your faith right now? I know you are praying, which is one of the most important things to do, but what else are you doing to encourage your faith and to continue to seek him? Yeah,
definitely trying to be more in a routine of going to church because I love my sleep and I can't stand getting up early. That is the hardest challenge for me. But definitely just trying to wake up and be excited to go to church. Yeah. Because I know growing up, I wasn't excited to go to church. Yeah. I was excited to eat the goldfish in the pews. Yeah. Like, they were bribing me with snacks to be quiet.
Yeah. Church hits differently when you're excited to go.
Yeah. And this church has been really great. So just trying to be excited to go to church, trying to wake up and be grateful for the day, be grateful for the breath that I'm, being given, and being grateful for the life that I have. Yeah. So just trying to be grateful to him that he's, been able to give me everything that I have, and trying to be more open with him and having these discussions and that relationship with him that I didn't get to have for the last 15 years, you know, or that I was closed off to.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Are you doing any Bible studies? Like, are you I know our family is doing a weekly Bible study. Yeah. But are you or you and your husband doing any reading together?
We need to start for sure. We definitely we have a couple books that we really need to. I think we started it and then life got in the way, as it does, and we just never got a chance to finish it or keep it going. Yeah. But we do have, Bible studies on Wednesdays, so we do that. And then really just trying to open my Bible app every morning to see that verse of the day and really just resonate with it and just be like, well, what is he talking about here? Yeah. Like today, before we got here, I sat down and read John chapter 20. I think it was like verses 20, 21. I don't remember what it was.
That's okay.
Anyway, and it was like, I had read that, and then I was like, well, why did he, relate to this? And so I went back and read Mary's story and how she was possessed, and then went back to Judas and was, trying to understand where these people were coming from. Yeah. And why he did that, because when I was in church, it wasn't like we read from the first book to the end book to understand the whole story. It was just kind of like, whatever the preacher felt that day was kind of what we were learning about, which is fine. Like, people preach differently, but it's just like, in my brain, I have to have a finish to an end to really understand everything that went on. And, I only got these glimpses or pieces. So, especially with the Old Testament, no idea. Like, that is above my head.
Yeah. And I think so, and I learned this when I went to college, that it's really good, especially with new Christians, to start, you read the Bible, but you don't start with Genesis, because Genesis, and I'm so guilty with this, but like Genesis always kills me, because I'll get there and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's like, it goes on forever, and I shouldn't feel that way, but it's hard. When you're like just new to the faith, that book can be hard. So you need to kind of know the why. And so it's good to start with Matthew, Mark, Luke and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I was like, why?
And Jacob.
And Jacob. Jobadiah.
Yeah, there you go.
No. I don't know why I just had a brain fart. Anyways, start with those books because that tells you who Jesus is. Mm-hmm. Those books are just talking about who Jesus is, everything he went through, and then go start at the beginning of the Bible. Because when you have the why and like a piece of what's going on at the beginning, it makes more sense reading that. So if I could advise anything to you, I would totally advise you should read the whole Bible. You should know what the preachers are preaching to you, and knowing that story helps a lot too. So when you start, that's where I would start personally. Yeah. And I tell my husband that too, because he's in this situation that he's reading through the Bible, everything too, and he's starting there. So it's good. So I'm glad that you are digging and doing that in your life. I think that's great. So now, as a newer believer, was it, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I think the best thing to ask, and I've asked a lot of people, especially newer believers, what does John 3:16 mean to you?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but give everlasting life.
Yep.
I mean, for me, it's just like the greatest sacrifice that any person has ever made. You know, it's just something that's above me, and it's just like, it's crazy to think that someone did that for me. Yeah. So like, that's my biggest takeaway is like, especially in my life, because it's like, even when your parents weren't there, your siblings weren't there to give you what you needed, he was always there, and he always, you know, he sacrificed his entire life for you, so that way you didn't have to, you know, go to hell and, you know, suffer all of these crazy consequences and whatnot. Like, he gave you an out. Yeah. And he's only asking for a little thing in return. That's it. That's all you have to do. Yeah. So yeah, that's my biggest thing for me. Yeah. It's crazy.
It is sure crazy. Yeah. It's plumb wild.
Plumb wild.
Well, good. That's good. So I'm trying to remember where I want to go with this, to be honest. John 3:16. So looking back on the hardships that you went through, now having the perspective of Christ, does it change how you feel or you look at your past?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I used to be angry. Yeah. All the time. Like, honestly, I don't know why my husband married me. I was angry all the time. I was just, you know,
I didn't. Beautiful for one.
Yeah. I didn't want to talk to my parents. Like, I was just, you know, I mean, I still struggle with the relationship, especially on my biological dad's side. I don't think I've talked to him in, you know, years, it seems like, which it definitely should change. I mean, but yeah, I was angry at a lot of stuff that went on in my life, and, you know, it wasn't turning to the right person to help me get through it. You know, I wasn't asking God, like, why, you know, why am I so angry? And, like, why can't things just be normal? Why can't I have a good childhood? Why can't I have parents that love me all the time unconditionally? And now it's kind of just like, I understand why you did it. Yeah. You know, it's like, I understand that, you know, you're putting me through the storm because you know I'm going to come out better on the end. Mm-hmm. You know, you knew my life before I was born. You knew my life before I was conceived. You knew, I mean, you know, you've known everything. And like, you knew that I was going to end up going through this, and you knew that everything that I went through was just to come back to you. And that's
beautiful.
And that's exactly what happened. So, you know, I have regrets about what I've done, but it got me to where I am. So now I am grateful. Mm-hmm. I have more patience. I try to love more. Yeah. Try not to hold grudges, because I understand everybody else has their own path, and the way I respond affects everybody else. Yeah. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the one thing you can always control is how you react to something. And it's funny because I went to church. I don't know. I think you had a sibling in town, but I was at your church, and Andy spoke on just, it was back when like the Olympics happened, and
yeah, I did miss that service.
Yeah, the opening ceremony, and he was like, tell me about like everyone who was so offended and so mad about it, and he was like, you know what? He's like, first of all, God can defend himself, and second of all, you need to learn to find a balance in the sense of like, you need to love the other side.
Yeah.
Because when we get so angry, you can't meet someone in the middle.
Right.
And you get so blinded, and you have this side fighting you and you're fighting back, and so there's just this messy middle ground. But when you stop being offended and you learn to truly love them and forgive yourself and forgive them, even if what they're saying is so offensive or they've hurt you, and if you learn to change that about yourself, like that's where like you really can start meeting people in the middle
Right.
of things. And that was really powerful.
Yeah,
it touched me, and I feel like that's I think where you are beginning to go, is be softened by that, and letting God soften your heart to forgive and to be patient and to not be angry. And I think that's really beautiful. So what would some advice be that you would give to someone that went through that situation and is either seeking God or is just trying to move past their past?
Yeah. Build that relationship with God, because the only comfort you're going to get out of your anger and out of your past is giving it off to someone else to advise you, to comfort you, to give you guidance, to be able to listen to you without judgment.
Yeah.
That's the only person that's going to be able to do that for you. And that's the only person that's going to be able to be like, hey, Taylor, why don't we just take a beat? Instead of being angry all of a sudden, let's bite our tongue and let's move on. Let's do something different today. You know, and that's the only person that's going to be able to, I guess, you know, keep your cool around. But yeah, I would just talk to God, you know. I mean, it's not like he is this high superior power that, you know, has every control over your life, but like he's your best friend. Yeah. As he should be. Yeah. You know, he doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to be literate enough to talk to him, or you don't have to be this great superstar, or, you know, have lots of money to be able to talk to him. You can just talk to him. Yeah. And I love that we have a God that we can talk to. Yeah, just have a relationship with. And it's amazing how much of a difference that it makes in your life. Yeah. So yeah, that's where I would start. Just start talking. So. That's so true. And I also, adding on to that, I feel personally, we actually talked about this in our Wednesday Bible study, and I think, I can't remember who talked about it, but they talked about how like there's a reason God called us to be sheep. One, because man, sometimes we are not smart. We are really not smart. But secondly being that we weren't designed to carry anything. Yeah. And you weren't designed to carry that burden and that anger and that hurt. And you can go to our loving God and give that. That's what he's there for, is he will take that from you. So as we end this podcast, is there anything left on your heart that you want to share, or anything you want to speak about that we didn't speak about on this podcast? I think a lot of people who have been through my past, you know, they travel with a lot of baggage. Yeah. And yeah, just talk to God, you know, give it to him. You know, he's the airplane carrying you all the way there. So let him, you know, have all the baggage, all the luggage, let him carry everything for you. Because like you said, we're not designed to carry all this stuff. And unfortunately, in our lives, like, God knows you're going to do it. You're going to end up carrying a lot more. I mean, obviously he knows what you're going to carry and what you're going to go through, but he knows you yourself is going to, like me, I was just like, I don't know why he put me through that for so long. Yeah. You know, I was angry with God. I was angry with my family. I was angry with everybody. I was just a hateful person all around. But, you know, I learned that everything happens for a reason. And, yeah.
That's beautiful. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I am so thankful for you. I feel so blessed that you are my sister-in-law. And you better be excited. Well, hi, Rami. I think it's the first time he's actually been in camera on our podcast. He's in a little cone, but coming to say hello. But I'm not only thankful for us being sister-in-laws, but also just the friendship that I have gotten from you over the last few years. You are a very special person, and a very special person to me. So with that being said, I'm going to close this out in prayer, and that will finish up this podcast. Yeah. So
before you do that, I want to say I'm very thankful for you, and I'm so proud of you for doing this. This is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so excited for you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Dear Holy Father, thank you for this day that you have given to us. Thank you for letting us come together and bring honor and glory. Lord, I especially thank you for Taylor. Thank you for never leaving her and just really touching her heart and letting her know that you are a safe person to come to, that you are our creator, and that you love her so much, and that you can heal all things, and that we know and trust that we can come to you, and that you can carry all of our baggage in life. Lord, I pray that she just continues to seek you, and we are just so excited for the journey that you are taking her on, and we continue to praise you for that, Lord. Lord, we ask for forgiveness over all of our sins and trespasses. We love you in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, and that concludes this week's episode. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Woo!
That's all right.